What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Golden Edge Mailbag. I'm Review Journal reporter Ben Gotz. He is Review Journal reporter Adam Hill. A reminder, we do this every week. We answer your burning questions about the Golden Knights, so send them to us on Twitter, at BenSGoats, at Adam Hill LVRJ, or email me at bgotz@reviewjournal.com. The Knights are in the middle of a big homestand right now, so we got a lot to talk about, Adam. We talked a lot about stuff on our latest Golden Edge podcast. You can also download that on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. But it's a big time of the year with this homestand, the trade deadline coming up. So we got some burning questions, so I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, me too, as always. Great questions from you guys, and make sure you keep sending them in so we can answer even more questions each and every week for you.
More. We will never have enough. Just keep giving them to us. We're very greedy when it comes to questions.
We'll sit here for an hour if you want to.
If we have to, we will do it, because we're here for the people. And we're here specifically for @Scott Backey, who sent in a great question. Assuming everyone except Eric Holla is healthy by the trade deadline, who/what does general manager George McPhee trade for? Or does he do nothing? Adam, our colleague David Shane, just wrote a great story kind of addressing this topic and getting McPhee on the record to talk about some stuff. And from what I read into it, he didn't necessarily sound like a man eager to make a big splash.
You know what? We just talked about this on the podcast, and as Ben said, check that out. But to go, even further into it, you read one quote one way, and I read the same quote kind of another way, which we discussed quite a bit over on the podcast. But yeah, George McPhee, I think he's going to be interested. He's going to certainly do his due diligence. He's going to see what's out there, and I think he's going to play his cards very close to the vest. But I would be shocked if they're not involved in something. And whether that means, pulling the trigger on a trade or at least going down to the wire or getting involved in some way, I think he's going to be involved somehow with certain players around the league. And I think, you can look at what they're trying to look at. I mean, they need to bolster the third line. We've seen them play around with the third line a lot. They need more production out of the third line. We saw the other day they went down to 10 forwards for the third period with Zykov and Nosek basically just not playing any shifts. And, Brandon Peary goes back in the lineup, so we'll find out, what that does for the Knights, but they need some more out of that third line. So can they go out and find a wing somewhere? We know Cody Eakin can be productive with the right pieces, so maybe a guy like Wayne Simmons out there. Although, the Flyers kind of getting back in the mix, so you don't know if he's certainly available, but, I think he would be for the right price. What are the Golden Knights willing to give up? But I think those are the type of guys they might look at. And, of course, I think they're always in the market for a way to bolster the defensive core as well. So I think that's where you look. Perhaps a defenseman, especially one that could fit the system, and a productive wing like a Simmons would probably be where they go.
Yeah, there's also a guy like Ottawa's Mark Stone might be available. I think he's a name to watch. But it's tough because the Knights are in an interesting position where owner Bill Foley on the Knights official podcast a couple weeks ago said they don't want to trade their 2019 first-round pick. They're still building up their prospect core. They have a couple top prospects, but they really don't have the depth that a lot of these other teams have. So they're still building that up because it's only a second-year team despite the kind of runaway success that they've had so far. You're also looking at if you're George McPhee, he told our colleague Dave Shane he doesn't really want to look at rentals. So you're looking at guys that might be more expensive, not only in what you need to give up to get them, but then you might need to pay these guys, or at least like they did with Max Pacioretty, which was a sign and trade where they traded for him and then immediately handed him an extension because they didn't want to give up a prospect haul for a guy that was going to leave in a year. So that kind of complicates things too, if you might be negotiating a trade and an extension at the same time.
Although I also think that is a little bit to drive the price down of we don't want to look at rentals. Oh, but if we do take your rental, we're going to give you less for it. I think he's negotiating in the press a little bit on that as well.
It's definitely possible, and you never know what to really believe around this time of year. It's always so tough, but yeah, George McPhee has been a wheeler and dealer in the past, so it'll be interesting to see what the Knights end up doing at this trade deadline. We've got another comment from @Corey Ormsby. Carrier is back. Here come the hits. He's so vital to how we meaning the Vegas Golden Knights, want to play. William Carrier came back after about a month on injured reserve against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Really nice game for Carrier, I thought, Adam, and he announced his presence right away.
Yeah, 8 hits, which he's just throwing his body around with reckless abandon. We know that's what he does. That's the type of player he is, but you might think there's some caution, some apprehension about getting involved and getting in the mix again. Not for Will Carrier. That's not who he is.
He has 227 hits. He leads the NHL by far, despite this 12-game absence recently. And I did ask him in the locker room the other day, like, hey, were you worried or you nervous about throwing your body around? And he was like, no, I was ready. So good for Will Carrier.
By the way, who's second in the league in hits?
Ryan Reeves. So it's a teammate competition, but Reeves is, I believe, 25 back of Carrier right now.
Despite Carrier missing almost a month. That is insane.
No, the dude's a machine. He has the highest shots per game total of his career. He has the highest takeaways per game of his career. He's third on the team in expected plus minus, which is an advanced hockey reference stat. So he's having a quietly very productive year for a 24-year-old fourth-line winger. You know, we've said this a lot, but that was a nice pickup by George McPhee in the expansion draft.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Next up, we've got an email from Paul Gary. Thanks, Paul, as always, for your email. Eakin played his best this year on line 2 when Stastny was out. He needs wingers who can get into the corners and play big as well in front of the net. To address the first part of that comment, Adam, it is kind of freaky how Eakin's season is kind of a tale of two, not quite halves, but a tale of two stretches, because he had 14 points in 18 games while both Paul Stastny and Eric Haula were out, and Eakin was centering that second line. And he has 14 points in the other 35 games. So he has not been as productive, not on that second line. But as we kind of mentioned off the top, it's also because the guys on his third line are kind of going in and out. There's not a lot of consistency there, and I think it's hard for him to make plays when that happens.
Yeah, the third line's been incredibly inconsistent. And I don't think you want to pin it on him. Obviously, Cody Eakin has showed when he's got guys that are productive around him, he can be very productive. He can be, an effective weapon. And we know what he can do as a 200-foot player. He can contribute defensively and on faceoffs. But as far as that offensive production, he needs those type of guys. I think as the commenter was saying. And I think that's also why we were just discussing what can they do to maybe improve that third line, to maybe bring somebody in to make it more consistent, or just figure out maybe getting Brandon Peary back to the production that he had those first 9 games when he was up with the team. So I think they've got to figure something out with the third line. I think Cody Eakin can certainly be a part of it. Maybe they still have ruled Eric Haula out for the year. Maybe something happens there. We don't know, but I think it is important to get guys in there that are productive with Eakin, and that makes him that much better. We'll see what they do to address that, because it is certainly a concern. We already referenced it, the fact that they already moved Nosek and Zykov out of the lineup completely the other day. Like, they are figuring out what can they do to make that third line better, whether it's in the organization or not.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to me that other day against Columbus Blue Jackets. Tomas Nosek, Valentin Zykov, and Cody Eakin, 0 shots on goal through 2 periods. They bench Zykov and Nosek. Eakin rotates with a fourth line, Will Carrier, Ryan Reeves, and Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and he scores a goal. And so that was just kind of interesting to me and indicative of how Eakin can make plays when he's with the right people. He gets out in transition, Bellemare sets him up for a nice one-time shot, and Eakin's got a good shot, so he beats Sergei Bobrovsky, gets a go-ahead goal at that point in the third period against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Would have been an easy game story for us to write in terms of a game winner potentially, but then Cam Atkinson happened, and the Knights lose that game 4-3. But yeah, as you said, it'll be interesting to monitor what they do with Eakin moving forward, if they even juggle lines more and get him with guys like Bellemare more. Our last question from @T95411F.
Is that a real name?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just read what's in front of me.
T9411F. I don't know what that means.
I guess everything else was taken. How long has Bischoff been called up? I looked this up. Jake Bischoff was officially called up on January 30th. He has been a healthy scratch 5 times since being called up. Probably will be for a 6th time tonight. He has been scratched 13 times this season. Might be 14 tonight. That's a pretty rough life if you're a 24-year-old trying to make your debut in the NHL, I would think.
Yeah, he certainly wants to be on the ice. He wants to be able to contribute. Right now, he's kind of caught in that numbers game. He is, the 7th defenseman out there. So it's tough to find him the time. It's tough to, get minutes for him when you are trying to, build up these points. Every single point is important. Every single game is important. And, that's the position he's in right now. And then when Nick Holden comes back, he probably won't be around anymore. So, that's where he is right now. I'm sure he's very happy being in the NHL. He would much rather be on the ice. I'm sure every player that is scratched wants to be on the ice. But you can't feel too bad for a guy that gets to be in the NHL and, be a part of an NHL franchise right now.
Yeah, fair enough. And you wrote the story the other day. Defenseman John Merrill has had a really good stretch here for the Golden Knights, so he's not a guy you want to take out of the lineup. He's kind of been their 7th defenseman and now 6th with Nick Holden injured. So there's not a lot of room for Jake Bischoff to break through right now. But General Manager George McPhee, when he talked to us a couple of weeks ago, he did mention Bischoff as a guy who's really improved this year in the AHL and a guy they're really happy with. So he might factor into their depth kind of in future seasons. But yeah, for right now, it's probably not an ideal situation for him being healthy scratched every night. But we're here. We're not healthy scratches. We will be at the game tonight. We show up every game time, and we show up every week to do this mailbag. Remember, you can send questions to us at Ben S. Gotz on Twitter, at Adam Hill LVRJ, or BGOTZ at reviewjournal.com. Check out all our Knights coverage at reviewjournal.com, and, check out our Golden Edge podcast. And we'll see you next week, everyone.